Hey there, guys. Have you ever gotten one of those Google alerts from Google Search Console saying something cryptic about like, hey, your indexing might be off or we're not able to index these pages, and it sounds like something bad's happening, right? So we get clients kind of freaking out about it a little bit all the time. They get these emails. They're not quite sure what they mean. It sounds bad for your search engine optimization and like something is wrong going on with your site. So we're going to take a little closer look at what's generating those emails that you might receive or some of the issues that you might get alerted to, and whether they're even actually bad for your site. So let's take a look real quick. All right, so we're in Google Search Console right now, and so we're going to take a look at the pages indexing area of Google Search Console. And it's going to show you what pages have been indexed, what may be not indexed by Google's spiders, and it's going to give you a reason down here. Now, these are the reasons that you're seeing in those alerts. So when an email goes out, it's saying like, you know, you have these pages that are not found, 404 error, or there's, alternate pages with proper canonical tag, and, various alerts that'll come out in your email. So this is where you find that information. And this is where we're going to take a look at whether it's something you should worry about or whether it's your site is behaving as expected. So let's go through these and take a look. So alternate page with proper canonical tag. So we're going to look, this is for our site remaineternal.com. And you can see that it's saying like this page right here was crawled and it's not being indexed because it looks like it has a canonical tag. So a canonical tag is basically if you have multiple ways to get to a page on your site and those have different URL strings, you're telling Google which one is the one to focus on. So a canonical is saying like, this is the primary URL for that content. And that way it doesn't look like duplicate content. Not that you're penalized by duplicate content, but Google just doesn't know which page to serve up. So you're telling it, this is the one we want you to serve. And these canonical tags are just code that's on the page. A lot of CMSs do this automatically, especially, like commerce systems like Shopify. There's often multiple ways to get to the same product. It might be in multiple categories. It might have different tags, that kind of thing. And so it will automatically assign those canonical tags kind of out of the box in Shopify. So you don't really need to worry about that. But those are still going to show up in this. And the reason I bring up Shopify is that this is a Shopify site. So these are still going to show up in here, even though the tag is set up correctly. So in a situation like this, it's not wrong per se. It's just Google saying, hey, we've found these pages and they have canonicals. Now, what you do want to do is monitor this to see if these are in fact correct. So has the canonical been added correctly? Is Google indexing the wrong page? And then you would need to work with your developer if you have a system where you can change those canonicals or if they're added manually to do that. But overall, this is generally not something that's necessarily wrong with your site, even though in this messaging it looks like it is, right? Like it says done fixing, validate fix. There may be nothing to validate. It may not actually be wrong. All right, so the next one on the list here is not found 404. Now these are typically legitimate, right? So you don't want to have a lot of 404s because Google is a 404 errors, the page is not found. So Google will try to spider it. They're going to try to look at what information should be there, where it's getting linked to, that kind of stuff. You don't want Google having a lot of 404s because it's going to use up some of your spider allotment. And it also just looks bad for the site. So Google, if you have tons of 404s, it's not working correctly, they may see your site as not being user friendly, and that could impact your SEO. And so what you want to do is you want to look at what's causing these 404s. And so like on here, it's obviously part of some sort of automated spidering that's getting sent to these pages, or maybe products that no longer exist because maybe they were paused because they were out of stock or something like that. And so what you want to do is just make sure that for legitimate pages that you're setting up redirects on the site. So if you see a lot of 404 errors on your site, obviously that's not a great experience for Google, but it's also not a great experience for your customers. So you want to make sure that they're not clicking on something and going to a page that doesn't exist and getting that 404 error. So you want to monitor this and just make sure that you're doing redirects on a regular basis where it makes sense. Obviously, if the product is just paused or hidden because it's out of stock, but it's going to be in stock later, you don't want to necessarily do a 301 redirect because that will tell Google that it's moved permanently. So maybe you want to, rather than having it hidden on your site, just say that it's out of stock. And so that way Google will still continue spidering that content. It's not going to throw a 404. People aren't going to see a blank page, that kind of thing. But this is important to go through and monitor. You can see they actually have a lot of 404s on this site. So over 1,000, almost 2,000. So that's something that should definitely be cleaned up. So that's where you need to go in and do redirects, find out what's causing some of these weird URLs that aren't leading to a page. So not only can you do 301 redirects, you might actually be able to go into your robots.txt and adjust it. And so if there tends to be a pattern to these where there's like a directory or there's that kind of stuff in here, you can do wildcards to tell Google to stop indexing those sections of the site that you don't want it to index. And that way it's not going to throw those 404s. It's not going to show up in search engine. So there's times definitely where you don't want Google and other spiders to search your content, and that is possible. So there is limited ability to do that in some CMS systems, like to adjust your robots.txt, but others you can do that pretty easily, and sitemaps as well. So if you have like a SEO tool on your site, like if you have a WordPress site or something like that, you can get something like Yoast or something like that and modify your robots.txt and modify your sitemap pretty easily to make sure that it's not throwing these 301s or throwing these 404s rather. So you don't always have to go do a 301 if you are proactively kind of keeping track of that stuff. All right, next one, let's look at page with redirect. So like we were just talking about, 301 redirects, or even there's other forms of redirects, but 301 is one that's a permanent redirect. So that's telling Google like, hey, permanently move this to a different URL, give that URL credit, like pass your Google juice to that URL. There's also like 302s, which is a temporary redirect. So that's something that sometimes people do. But this is just telling you that these pages have redirects. And again, that might be your anticipated behavior, right? That may be what you want it to do. You purposely set up that 301 or 302, and so you want that to happen. So like in here, you can see like this has the HTTP, for instance, is redirecting. That you want that because you want it to direct to the SSL version, the HTTPS. So that is expected behavior. Same down here, it's an HTTP. Some of these are maybe old links and stuff like that on your site. And so you just want to go ahead and redirect that and make sure that Google isn't picking that up. Now, one thing that we'll caution, this site does not have huge number of redirects. It has 254. We have seen clients with tens of thousands of redirects that have accumulated over time. And you just need to be careful with that because Google and the search engines or other spiders have to go through all of those to determine if those pages are valid. And that can slow down, one, their spidering of your site, but it also can slow your site down. So you have these spiders hitting all of these, going through and testing all these redirects, and it can cause some slight site slowdown if you have a busy site or lots of people visiting it. That can cause some latency, and you don't necessarily want that. So that's something to be careful of. All right, so that is the pages with redirects. Again, not all of these are broken, so you may want those to be there. So blocked due to access forbidden 403. So this is exactly what it sounds like. So you have, or the system that you have has blocked these pages. So for whatever reason, it could be part of your checkout, it could be part of your admin, it could be a JavaScript directory, whatever the reasoning is. There's absolutely reasons that some of these are blocked by your servers and your CMS platform's security. So they don't want people accessing it. They don't want Google spidering these for any number of reasons, mostly for security, so people can't see the back end stuff, which is fine. That's expected behavior. But you just want to make sure that you may be blocking certain categories on your site or certain sections of your site or directories on your site that you don't mean to. And so you just want to make sure that that has been set up correctly. So this is a good idea to just review these on occasion, just to make sure that it's not something that's, for instance, somebody that has security access or admin access on your server didn't inadvertently set something up that they weren't supposed to. But most of the time, these are going to be automatically triggered. You just want to review them. Like you can see, all of these are part of the checkout process and that kind of stuff. So you don't want the spiders in there. All right. Server error. So this is, there's a number of different types of server errors, but typically it means that your website or your server is overloaded or has timed out. And so you can see on these, it looks like it's trying to do some sort of search on the site or login or something like that. And it's hitting the site and it's timing out. So there's not a lot you can do about this. It is something to bring up with your developers. If you see this as a growing problem, you can see this is actually was worse. It didn't affect that many pages, only like 13, but it's dropped down to 7. So it could be times when your server's overloaded, you're having a lot of traffic, or it could be even just times when somebody's doing some sort of automated search, or you see the spider doing some sort of search that's just not returning a result. And so what's happening is it's timing out. So that doesn't necessarily mean that your server's overloaded. It just means that that query or whatever they're trying to do from their browser or from a spider is timing out because the server's not responding back in a certain period of time. And so you'll get that with like some of these, and you can tell in these URLs, it looks like there's some sort of hit happening on the site where it's trying to look for an API or it's trying to look for that kind of stuff, and that's timing out. What is a concern is if it's your homepage or a product page that's used a lot, and if it is timing out, then that means your server resources are getting overwhelmed and you need to look at a different hosting environment. Maybe you need to, if you're on a WordPress site or something like that, you should move to something that has more of a dedicated server, or maybe you need load balancing, or you need to check your CDN to make sure that your images and JavaScript and that kind of stuff are dispersed and not causing a lot of server overhead. So again, and a lot of that is stuff that you'd have to deal with your development team about, or whoever you're hosting your website with. But this is a good thing to keep an eye on, because when you start to see climbing 500 errors, that points to something potentially either being wrong with your site or your server, or somehow some people are trying to access stuff that they shouldn't be, that's causing timeouts. So definitely something to monitor. Doesn't always mean there's something that you can fix necessarily. Okay, excluded by no index tag. So a no index tag is very similar to like the robots.txt. That's a file that tells the spiders not to spider certain areas of your site. The no index is a tag that actually goes on your site and says, don't index this page. And so there's, again, a number of reasons why you may not want that indexed. So it could be, again, part of the checkout process. It could be part of the administrative area of your site. It could be have to do with JavaScript, that kind of stuff. These are being told not to index, it looks like, because they're part of the checkout. In this search string for whatever reason. I'm not sure why it's telling it not to do those search strings. So again, something to look at. Are you inadvertently telling Google to not index certain pages? Maybe there was some code left on that page or somebody added some code. So you're going to want to check these on a regular basis just to make sure that there's not an error. Again, you don't want to keep Google from indexing important pages or pages that you want them to index. So just make sure that that's not somehow saying, hey, don't index me when you do in fact want it indexed. Otherwise, these aren't broken. It's nothing to repair. It's working as it should, even though it said validate fix, because it's just kind of telling you something's broken when it's not necessarily. But it is good to keep an eye on. All right, let's go down the line here. Robot.txt, that's what we talked about. Let's take a look at what that is. So this is literally a file on your server that tells Google whether it should access certain pages and or directories on your site, and it will tell it disallow or allow. Let me pull that up, robots.txt. So you can see on this same remain internal site, it's telling the user agent that these are allowed except for where it says disallow. And so it's disallowing things like the admin, makes sense, cart, orders, checkouts, certain combinations of collections. That's probably because it looks like it's not canonical or can cause duplicate content. Same with some of the blog stuff. It doesn't want you looking at different types of query combinations and tagging combinations. So this is automatically generated by Shopify. So there's not a lot of control you have over this. Robots.txt, I think if you are on Shopify Plus, you can make some changes to this. And there may be some third-party tools that allow you to do it as well. But generally, you don't need to mess with this. Where this gets important is if you do see some problems in your page indexing. So you can see these are the pages that are blocked, is the cart and register and that refund policy. I'm not sure why the refund policy is blocked. But so those aren't necessarily pages that you want to be spidered, which is fine. So you want to make sure that you're monitoring that and that there's nothing that's sneaking in here that shouldn't be. So I have seen many times actually where people inadvertently disallow wildcards. That's what these are. The little asterisks is a wildcard, basically saying anything in this directory should not be indexed. So I've seen people accidentally do that for their entire site. I've seen them do it for their entire product catalog. So you have to make sure that you're checking this and make sure that it's done correctly, because otherwise you can keep Google from indexing your site. So again, something to review, not necessarily anything to fix. Like all of these in here are performing as expected. And so it's not broken, even though Google would insinuate that they are. But it is something to check. All right, so blocked by robots. Soft 404. Soft 404s are interesting. So a 404 is when Google can't find a page, right? A soft 404 is when the page looks like it probably is blank or is not a quality page. So they only have one on this website. Let's take a look at it. And this is why it's a soft 404. So Google's basically saying, hey, we don't see any products in this. It's a blank page. And so they're not going to index it because it looks like it's potentially broken. It's not going to be a good user experience to come to a blank page with no search results or nothing in the category. So while not technically wrong, it's not a broken page necessarily. It just doesn't have anything in it. And so Google's going to say, hey, we're not going to index that page because it looks like not a great user experience. So in that case, you just want to monitor these and make sure like, hey, why aren't there any products in that? Should that be a redirect? If you've discontinued that product line or that category, should you just do a redirect for that so that Google's not seeing it as a soft 404? Now, we've had clients where they have tens of thousands of soft 404s, and it was a problem with how their on-site search was being used as navigation. And so if you make a slight change, it was leading to pages that were getting 0 search results that used to be category pages. And it was showing all these like blank pages with no search results on them. And so Google was reading those as all soft 404s. Again, when you start getting into the tens of thousands of pages like that, where Google's having a problem, it's going to affect their spidering. It's going to affect their perception of your experience of your site, all of which can factor into their algorithm about how to rank you. So that is important to keep a lookout for and to monitor. All right, crawled, but currently not indexed. Now, this is one we get a lot of frustration from with our clients. So basically, this is Google saying, hey, we crawled your site. We know those pages exist, and we're currently not going to index them because for a variety of reasons. Most likely, it's lean content, right? Like, so is it good content on that page? Is it duplicate content? Is it very obviously AI generated, not helpful content? It could be something that is a category that you have that doesn't have a lot of links to it. There's not any authority. There's other stuff that are better either on your site or on other sites. So it's an indication that basically, hey, Google took a look at it. They don't think it's worthy, right? So that is problematic. So you want to make sure that you're going in and looking at why these pages aren't ranking. So let's even see if there's any content on this one. So it does have content, but it's farther down. It's like page 7 out of these pages. So for whatever reason, Google is saying that they don't want to index that. So there is things that you can do. You can expand the content. You can you can improve the quality of the content. You can increase the links to that content. And so there's a variety of things that you can do to try to make sure that Google gets wind that they should be featuring that page, right? So, and you can see in a lot of these, it looks like it's deeper pages in that maybe have some not compelling reasons to be shown. And some of these are like the .atom pages, which I don't think Google really pays attention to anymore. Some of them are XML pages. So you just need to go through and make sure that why is it not doing this? Now, if you have a page in here that you think should be featured and Google isn't indexing it, like I said, go fix that content, maybe expand the content, clean it up, add a little bit more uniqueness and usability. Like, is it helpful to your customers? That would be important. And then what you can do is resubmit it. And so what you can do is to go to the URL inspection and submit it here, ask for it to be indexed. So let's just take a look at that real quick. We're going to copy this one, go to the URL inspection, paste it in. Google's going to try to retrieve that. Now this one is saying that this is actually indexed. So the page is indexed, but it might not be featured on the site. So you can request, once you make those repairs, you can request another indexing. And so Google will add that to their list. They're not going to necessarily do it right away, but Google will add it to the list and eventually get to it. You're just basically alerting Google that there has been changes to that page and that they might want to take another look at it. Don't keep redoing that because it doesn't increase the odds of it being indexed. It just is letting them know that you made changes. All right, so that crawled, currently not indexed. Again, that gets really frustrating when people are spending time on blogs and stuff or product pages and it says, yeah, we looked at it, we're not going to feature it. Now, sometimes that's purely just a time thing too. If you get a little time, it'll eventually get indexed, but not always. So, but again, you can see like sometimes that just hasn't refreshed too. Maybe it is indexed and they're just not showing it yet in that site. So you can go through and check in the URL inspector and just make sure. Okay, duplicate. Google chose a different canonical than the user. So this can get frustrating. So basically what it's saying is Google's basically taking a canonical or choosing something that you didn't have listed as the canonical. So maybe it thinks another page is better. And Google does that all the time, right? Like they make decisions about your content. For instance, if you have like a meta description of a page, they choose all the time not to use that. And they'll either choose content from the site to put in the meta description that appears in the search engine listings, or they'll completely redo it. So it's basically a suggestion. And the same thing with canonicals. You're suggesting a page that you should think should be the primary page. Google doesn't have to listen to it. They don't have to do what you ask them to do. So this is just alerting you to that. Now, where this is important is, again, it's not necessarily broken, but it's important to understand why that's the case. So, are you going to validate a fix on this? Probably not. But what you want to do is make sure to understand why Google's, choosing a different canonical for these pages. So, again, not something that's necessarily impacting your site, but it's something to be aware of. So if you get alerts around that, it is kind of important to understand. Just jumping back really quick to the page with redirects. One of the things, I said how it can slow down your site if you have a lot of 301s. The other thing that can slow down your site is if you have too many chain of 301s. So if you sent somebody to a page and then that goes to another page and that goes to another page, because 301 sometimes get set up over time. And so you might be having someone go to 3 or 4 different 301s. And that is a signal to Google that, there's something going on. Sometimes it'll time out their spider. It's not a great experience. It'll slow down your site. But it also can strip, if there's too many of those 301s, it can strip your marketing tags. So if you have UTMs in your URL or some tracking in the header or something like that, after too many 301s, it can actually strip that out sometimes. So you actually will lose track of where that user came from. So just to give you an example of a tool that we use. So here's a specific URL. I'm not even sure where that yoga bags came from. Has nothing to do with this site. So we use this website. It's http status.io. I'll link it in the description. We don't have any affiliation with this site. It's just something we use. So you can actually put in a number of URLs in here. Let me put in another one here just for the sake of it. And then you can check the status. And what this will do is give you a report and show you if it's directing correctly. So if you can see, this one is directing from this page back to a home page. So that looks like it was done at some point in the past. It shows you data about the redirect, shows you the latency. So if it's delaying too long. So this is all really good information. And this is where it's important to monitor your 301s over time, especially if there's lots of hands in the cookie jar, right? If there's been different developers and different companies. We were just working with a company that just launched a new site. And some of their URLs had 3 and 4 301 redirects, and it's a brand new site. So I'm not sure what was causing that. People made changes during time, and maybe those were automatically done 301s through their CMS system. But having anything more than 1 301 redirect can cause issues down the line. And so you definitely don't want 3 or 4 301s right in a row. Because that can just cause all sorts of problems with your spiders and with your tags. But this is a good thing to monitor, just to make sure that you're not causing unnecessary delays for your user, that you're not interfering with Google, and that you're doing your 301s correctly. So the best way to do that, if you do see multiple 301s, just go into your system and delete those, ideally, or figure out why they happened in the first place. Some of those 301s may be outdated because Google probably figured out that you moved it permanently months ago or years ago, so you don't need to maintain those 301s. So this is a handy dandy tool for checking that, just to make sure. So again, all of these things in the page indexing are super important, right? You want your pages indexed by Google. The more pages you have indexed, the more likely they are to get found in the search engine, the more likely they are to start ranking. So you want all of the pages that you put all that hard work into to rank correctly. unless there's a good reason for it. So unless you've had, there's a reason for you to do a canonical, or there's a reason for you to do a redirect. And so this is just an area that helps you monitor that. This is where Google Search Console is extremely important, because you don't get this information in Google Analytics. So in GA4, you can pull in like your keyword data and that kind of stuff from Google Search Console, but it's not telling you all of the information about how the site is getting spidered. So this is incredibly important information for your SEO program to understand what Google's seeing on your site, how it's spidering your site, and whether it's happening the way you want it to happen. Are those pages being picked up the way you intend? And this is a way for you to monitor that. So if you have any questions, please leave those in the comments. We are always happy to try to answer those if we can. You can also stop by our website, and I'll put a link to it, and set up a free consultation with me. If you have problems with your SEO or your marketing or analytics in general, or if you just have questions, we're happy to talk to you about ways that we can potentially help you and our agency can help you. And if you like this content, and if there's other things that you'd like to see, let us know that too. We're always looking for good ideas about stuff that we can help you with and new content that we can provide. So have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.